as you know, my name is Anupam. Okay, I'm from Nainital in Kumaon, in the Kumaon Hills, right? This is
Anne, born in Barbados, lived in the UK for quite some time. So anybody knows the West Indies? Cricket?
West Indies, yeah.
Okay, right, yeah. So from the land of cricket.
Oh, you're from that area?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. And you're working in England?
No, I went to study conservation. So I studied 2 MAs, 2 masters in conservation, and I went to study for 2 years. And after I did my first degree, I realized I didn't know anything. So I should find out a little bit more. And stayed for 20. Yeah, so maybe I just added a 0 on. So lots of different experience. I got very interested. I worked with both Mike and Teresa, even when I was a student. And we were working for 15 years together at the Victoria and Albert Museum, other places that had Himalayan art, especially Buddhist art. So then started to look at studying Buddhist art and conserving more, specifically Tibetan Buddhist art. And I was fortunate because the collections we worked with had many Buddhist objects, but that they were taken from Tibet and brought to the UK after the Young Husbands expedition, and then afterwards. So we have many of your objects that we're trying to take care of, so which is why I'm happy to be here to learn more about the objects directly from you all, as it is your material cultural heritage, but now has deep-rooted hearts in the whole of the West as well. So it's spreading.
So in terms of the objects that we are talking about, we are talking about preserving them, right? Yeah. So these objects, what are these objects which you have in your monasteries and in your collections? What are the types of objects we have, which we are thinking of preserving? What are these types? Any one type of object?
Let me start with what the library has. So we have old manuscripts.
Okay.
Manuscripts and...
so I'll get to that. Okay, so the library has manuscripts.
Yeah, and idols or objects. Yeah.
Okay, so manuscripts. So they're made on paper.
Yeah, they're all paper.
And are they block printed or are they written with ink?
Yeah, there's handwritten manuscripts and there are block print manuscripts. So basically,
so they're handwritten with ink and they are block printed. Yeah. Are they colored or are they not colored?
There are few in color, but
in color also.
And I think the more, if you look at the color side, I think there are few which are really rare, but written in gold and silver.
So there is color and then there is gold and silver also. So which is metals.
Metals, yeah.
Okay, and do they have? So when they are made with paper, they're made with lots of layers of paper, I suppose.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, some of them have.
And are they stitched with leather?
No, I don't think so.
No stitches? No
okay,
stitches. No stitches.
Yeah.
And are they also bound?
Not bound. They're loose sheets.
They're loose sheets?
Yeah, folios.
But do they have any boards on top of them?
Yeah, covers. They have wooden covers.
They are.
Yeah. Okay, so that is one type. So who are some people who can note down things for us, and we can, because we will make everyday reports also. Okay, so somebody, so first object. Are you going to help me? Yeah. Okay, now you're booked for 10 days. Okay, no problem. Otherwise, you can talk to them later. So today, first type of object is what do you call these manuscripts in your local language? Pecha? Pecha? Okay, Pecha. So how many collections here have Pecha? I want hands up. No Pecha. 1, 2, 3, 4. One. You have, of course. You don't keep Pechas? Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15, 6. So we have So in terms of sequence, the numbers that we're looking at, 16, 16. Okay, you also said, sir, that you also have objects.
Yes. Yeah.
Now we will only quickly go through the materials. Which materials, and then we will go with your collections.
Yeah, so these statues are clay,
Clay.
yeah, and bronze and silver.
Okay, clay.
Yeah,
So
and wood.
clay. How many hands up for clay objects in your collections? So 1, 2, 3. Only 3 clay. Clay objects को local में क्या कहते हैं? Should we say Jimbu? Chimku? Chimku? Will you put Chimku down?
Okay.
Clay, Chimku. So manuscripts, Pecha. So what else? What else?
And then obviously bronze and
Bronzes.
silver, yeah.
Bronzes. Okay, clay. Clay means without firing.
No, without fire. Yeah.
Without firing. And do you have fired objects also? Terracotta? No?
We don't have.
No fired objects?
No.
Cooking pots? No? No fired objects? Oh, interesting. No fired.
Plaster.
Bronze objects, 1. Bronze objects, 2, 3, 4.
I don't know whether it's bronze or not. We have some jewelry.
Copper, bronze, brass. Copper, bronze, brass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, we also have wooden objects. Wooden objects. You have wooden object. What type?
We have a printed drum. Printed
Wood block. So wood block, drums, wooden bowls, things like that. So wooden one. Wooden.
drums we have.
Yeah, put it. 2, 3, अच्छा 2, 3. So one hand, which hand? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Anybody with stone objects? Stone, crystal.
Yes, we have.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, quite a bit, huh? Stone. Okay. So, next question is, how many collections have photographs? Old photographs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, nice, strong. 9 photographs. And the institution also 10 photographs. The next is for only Tangka. Tangkas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 Tangkas. Okay. Then the last one from my side, then you can suggest if there's some other type, is what? Other. So then there is textiles, but like costume or other materials, but not painted surfaces. Like even wall paintings actually are all on painted surfaces, on like marouflage. So you paint on cloth and you put it on the wall, no? So wall painting will do separately, but in terms of costumes and other type of textiles, ritual textiles, how many feel there are collections of old heritage costumes and textiles?
Like hat.
Could be hat also, could be hats, yeah? Why is hat so, why hats?
Had some great successor lamas. Hats are there for blessing, and we have kept as a treasure.
Okay, so let's keep hats as a,
Yeah.
hats and, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, What type?
Hats, costumes.
Uh-huh. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Customs and jewelries.
5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7.
And do they?
So then we have other things like masks. So masks are mostly you have the masks in wood as well as in some other material, clay. So masks in clay. How many? So when we asked for clay, did you think about masks also? Okay. So anyway, let me see how many masks. 1, 2, 3 masks. 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 masks. Okay, so there is one more material that we are discussing, and that is, for the rituals you make things with bones and other material. So, yes, with ivory also. Bone, horn, ivory. These 3 materials, okay, and leather. Should we put leather? Okay, so one category for leather, bone, horn, and ivory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. So, is there any? For example, when you have the dungchin, you have it with the thigh bone, no? It's made of bone. Sometimes you have the aprons that are made with the material. So, like that, huh? Kangling. The kangling. Yeah. So, how many have you those with the bones, with that type of bones? Because bone can be animal bones and other bones. Yeah, human bone. Any particular human bone? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 4 and 1, 5. So when you in the Cillian Rolmo, you have the pecha from which you read, and then you have the instruments also. So in terms of musical instruments, which may comprise of leather also, bone also, everything. Musical instruments specifically, how many of us have? Our kanglings, our gelings, our dungchins, our drum. Yeah. So musical instruments, I suppose every monastery would have. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 for. The next thing we want to know is, this is your collection. You're aware of your collection. Now, today we are not going to ask you exactly the details of your collection. We are not interested in that. Right? We are interested more in what are the challenges that you feel that your collection is facing. The challenges can be technical, challenge can be climate, challenge can be administration, challenge can be funding, challenge can be the local community wanting to take objects on processions and all the time, and when they come back they break. So things like that. So this is just a casual, just points. We're not particularly interested only in problems with you and your collection, that is for you. But generally, if we can just list down the types of problems we face with our collections. No? Generally, just anything that comes to mind. We are not noting down which collection, which problem, but generally, do you feel? But first question, are we interested in increasing the life of these objects? Yeah. Do we agree on that? Yes. Okay. And in that case, what is it that is coming in the way of increasing the life of these objects?
To preserve in a better way.
To preserve in a better way? So you'll write that for us? Yeah. To preserve in a better way means some guidelines on how to preserve in a better way. Okay? So this can be in two ways, a traditional way and a modern way. It can be a mix of both. Okay, any other things?
One common adversary that people who live in Himachal is the monsoon.
Because
Okay.
of the organic material, there is a tendency that if we will not control the relative humidity, there is, like,
Fungus is growing.
fungus.
What color fungus did you see in your objects?
Dark green.
Dark green?
Yeah.
No, right. Dark green, huh?
Yes, yes.
Dark green?
Yes.
Okay. Huh? Especially on leather. Dark green. Okay. Any other colored fungus?
Though we use dehumidifiers, so we can't.
But have you
really
seen any other colored fungus?
No.
No white fungus? White, gray, white. Okay.
The problem is actually in identifying certain metals, like which are what materials, like whether it's copper, bronze, or what the identification of the metal itself. And then when we have like monsoon period and all, and at that time different objects have different problems. Like some has greenish bluish rust. Some of the objects has like white spores kind of thing.
Okay.
So first is in identifying the metals.
So another problem which you are saying is
Identification of the metal itself, the material.
how will that help us to know what
So,
metal?
When one can identify the metal itself, then one can find the solution for the conservation status for it.
If you see gold, can you recognize gold?
Gold and silver is fine.
Fine. And gold and silver, she's okay with that. That she knows. Okay, all right.
First problem is monsoon time.
Okay. So then, what is the other metal you have in? What gold is there, silver is there. You can recognize, no? Okay. Then bronze. What color is bronze? So let's put that as an exercise. Just say identification of metals. We'll discuss all this later. So identification. So by the time you finish this exercise of 8 days, you should go knowing this is the way I identified. Okay. That is the idea of doing this. So our job at night will be now not to go for a walk, but to answer all these things, okay? So we can answer everything. Yeah, otherwise it will be like a lecture series. We are not here for a lecture, okay? Next problem is?
When we say temperature and humidity control, if there's some kind of a guideline, what object, what kind of temperature.
Okay, welcome. This for you. Okay, so just write down before I forget. Guideline for correct climate. Guideline for correct climate. Okay, not for you, for the object. Okay, okay, and also monitoring. How to measure? We are saying humidity is high, but how much? Okay. And the one thing that you said was, she said that corrosion. There is white, there's blue. So on your metal, what color have you seen? You have seen what colors? Greenish, bluish.
And white.
Okay.
Just right.
Okay. So greenish, bluish. But you have writing it down. Greenish, bluish, and white. Any other colors you have seen on your metals? Brownish you have seen? Brownish, brown. What did you see?
In our collection, what we have observed is in some materials we have observed salt deposition of salt.
Salt.
Yes, salt deposition. There will be
Yeah.
accumulation
Like what
of white. Basically on steel, tin, iron, metal. Yes.
Interestingly. White deposition. White deposition.
On the metal?
He's saying on tin.
Tin, yes.
Yes. Do you have any object of aluminium? Aluminium also you will find a white. So that is a very good point you said about metals. We must see all the other metals. There's zinc, there is other things. Yeah. Okay.
Salt deposition, but we have also noticed patina growth. So we don't know sometimes because some
Okay.
patina can be good. Sometimes
So patina, let us discuss this also. I think it is important. Instead of cleaning everything up, let us realize that sometimes patina is good. Okay, thank you. Very good point.
and
Any
there
other
is normal rust, normal metal
Rust.
rust, that reddish
Reddish
one.
rust.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes.
Do you have orange rust or brown rust or red rust? I think you should put that in rust. Orange, red, brown. Okay.
And sometimes we are facing that well, we are displaying the Thanga on the wall
Huh.
for long term displaying the Thanga.
Huh.
So color might be changed.
So fading. Okay, fading of colored materials. Any other things we see in our collection? Wood.
Is brittle, the thread of the thangka, over a period of time there is a weighing process going on. Because what I heard is in the past there is an addition of metal in the in silk, which in the market it become very.
So threads are becoming brittle.
What about any flaking paint? Paint is coming off of things, whether they're on
Any-
thangkas or murals.
Any powder? Any paint powdering or flaking? मतलब पाउडर जैसा बनता कोई पेंटिंग के ऊपर?
Yeah, we have noticed it several times on our sculptures made of metal.
Painted sculpture.
Yes, painted sculptures.
What is happening?
Fading away of color and flaking of the paints basically. Some are chipping off directly.
On the metal
layers,
sculpture.
yes.
Which metal sculpture?
Can't exactly say what kind of metal.
So
it is,
flaking
but
also on metal sculpture.
flaking happens on metal sculptures.
Okay. Anything else?
We have a serious problem with our textile collection with this cloth moth. So especially in the
Acha,
organic
acha,
material.
acha, acha. Okay, so he has that cloth moth, like a casing. Yeah, okay. And what, woolen object or cotton objects or silk object?
Especially on woolen,
Woolen.
we have different types of woolen are different.
Cloth
One is
object.
called therma. So whatever the insect lives in, the
Gets
insect
that colour.
Yeah, gets that color.
Any other insect you see? Any other type
Beetles on the metals.
you saw? कहाँ देखा?
Museum.
किस टाइप का है दिखने का?
जो beetles types.
कैसा होता है beetle type?
color. Red color. It's flying.
दिखता
It's
है?
also flying.
कैसा दिखता है? हाँ? उनको बताएगा? बताओ। कैसा दिखता है?
We have one problem, So we,
Frog?
one especially about the black beetles.
अच्छा.
The black beetles eating all the collections inside the Dharani shop.
Have
in
you
Mansa.
seen it?
We have, yeah. Yesterday I showed you. Yeah,
So what
showed
does it
you.
look like?
There's a problem. I don't know. The small beetles. It's
Beetles.
inside.
They look like beetle.
inside. Yeah, like a beetle.
But black color.
Black in color. It's very small one. Yeah. Very
And what
small.
is it eating?
They're eating all.
Where did you see it?
Yeah, I saw you in yesterday.
Which
In
room?
In my in the museum. Yeah.
But in which room?
Yeah, in the second floor. Yeah.
On the floor or
Yeah,
in the
in
display
second-
case or in the
in the
object?
display case. Display.
Of which object?
Yeah, two objects. One of the the Guru Padmasambhava. Yeah, we inside they put Dharani inside.
In the
and
met-
also, not
But
only the-
that's a metal object?
Yeah, and also put
Yes,
inside
but
some herbs.
inside
some
Inside.
herbs,
coming up
medical
from
herbs.
inside.
Also juniper leaves or maybe I don't know. This is smell
Jennifer lives there? What is
yeah,
it?
put in.
Juniper leaves.
Yeah, juniper
So
leaves.
it's
Yeah,
some
inside. Yeah.
organic things.
But I have photos of them eating the feathers
Smile on maybe.
in one of the cases.
No, it's very, it's good. It's
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sir is saying that he's saying insect like brown, black, small. But what are they eating? No, that is a name because you have studied. But really in this museum, what is it that you think it is? Where is it that you saw it?
On station.
Which statue?
Artifacts. I think it's a copper guilty test.
And you saw that in copper. You also saw it in metal, huh? Okay, just write down brown, black beetle type of insect found in near copper statue object. Okay, let's just write. No? We are not deciding what. And you saw something in feather also?
Yes, the same beetle
Where?
eating the
Where?
feather upstairs in the museum.
In this place?
Yes.
Okay, so same beetle also on feather. So Teresa is saying that she saw it also on a feather. What was the object with the feather?
It was
Dada as we used to, Okay, so it's a ceremony.
So you saw the insect there. Okay.
Arrows with silver.
Okay. Okay. That is there. And any other damages that you can think of? Too much for today. We are stopping this session now. Okay. Now, we're going to show you some ways in which the workshop will proceed. But before that, we're just making a quick list of what questions, when you go away from here to your institution, what questions would you like to get answered? But this question will change maybe tomorrow also. So what are, for you, at the end of this workshop, because we don't know what idea you have of this workshop. Okay? We are making our idea after talking to you. Okay? So we want to know, when you go away from here, by that last day, there should be certain answers you must have. So do you have such thought that what you should take, you should know by the time, otherwise it is waste of time. Leaving your institution for 10 days, coming so far away is a waste of time otherwise. So what are the things you feel you should get answered by the time the workshop will end?
I think getting ourselves more organized and trying to customize our book principle or guidance with the help of expert. So probably trying to make a guideline for the conservation. But still we have been doing it, but we don't know whether it is in a way futuristic or effective.
So organize a workspace?
Organized in our approach.
Organized, okay. You have some expectations?
Yes, maybe like practical side.
Practical what?
Practical, and like for example, in monasteries and in Ladakh, there are a lot of Thanga paintings or Moral painting that has a lot of soot, of burning.
They have a lot of problems. All of the
Soot. Oh yeah, soot is also.
And then like we have like mural painting with the cracks, a lot of cracks, and then also some are actually falling out. Then how to remember?
I don't know about not much experience working on that.
On
Library and giving the precious statues, thangas, but I can knowledge about how to be solve those problems. Yeah, so we knowledge it, then we can tell the
okay.
monastery.
So this is for different types of objects.
Yes.
Okay.
Same thing they have said, but
What did they say? They only did. They did not say.
proper guidelines to keep the items organized.
Which is your majority item?
We have almost everything here: thanga, stupa, and
Okay.
statues, and
So same.
Since this workshop is mainly dealing with the ritual artifact, I have written down my concern here. So in order to properly put up my question, I want to read it out to all the observators here. So I want to get question for this.
First see what you're reading.
No, it's a very common question, sir.
One second.
It's basically about getting approval or approved, whether we are allowed to carry on with the conservation treatment on certain artifacts or not. Before, especially in the in the tantric tradition, there are so many manuscripts. There are so many thangas on which only few people are allowed to. Only the practitioners are allowed to touch, and there are so many points as such. So I wanted to know that we have certain amount of religious artifacts in our collection. So before carrying on with the conservation treatment, it is not only the, I think it's not only the technical, conservation methods that we should know, but also the traditional understanding of whether are we allowed to, carry forward with the conservation techniques. Because in Ladakh and in Himalayan areas, what I have noticed is that especially from Ladakh, nowadays there are lots of professional conservators who are coming up, especially from the local people, Ladakhi people carrying forward with the conservation treatment. The best thing that I have noticed, which I have never learned from the institution where I have studied conservation as well. So what I have seen, what I have experienced, observed is that they are doing what is known as deconsecration. Before carrying forward with any kind of conservation treatment, what they do is deconsecrating, or basically taking the permission or approval from the deity, the specific deity that the group or the independent researcher or conservator is going to do some conservation treatment. So it is basically like treating the object as not just a tangible heritage, but also treating the object as a living thing. So so I want to make sure through this workshop that personally as well as from our institution, whether are we really supposed to carry on with the conservation treatment on certain artifacts, or should we ask someone before carrying forward these treatments from local people or from someone who is well versed in these things. So this is my question.
Okay, but we will have this as a session.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm putting it as a group discussion. Okay, but in the meantime you already have a question, and your question is that if you are going to treat an object, who should you consult?
Yes.
Yeah? Whether it is for deconsecration, whether it is for permission, whether it is for taking it out of your museum display case or inside your library, right? Permissions?
Yeah. Because
types of permissions.
Although it has been mentioned in the ethics of conservation put forward by ICON that we should consult the sentiments of the local people before carrying forward such certain conservation treatment. But I think it is not only the consent of the donor or the person who has donated the object or who is willing to patronize certain treatment, but also the approval or the taking the permission from the deity itself, whether it be Tara, Buddha, or whatever kind of deity. So getting approval, or whether are we allowed to do certain thing or not, because considering the sentiments of the local people. So this was my concern. Every time, because in our collection we do have certain amulets. Usually what we do is we open them, we clean them up. So is it morally, ethically, correct to open certain things which are traditionally supposed to be not open and kept like that? So this was my concern.
It's a big topic and a very important conversation. We look forward to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is being discussed in the West with Western collection very seriously now, whereas before it was not, but now it is. So we can have a good talk about it.
Apart from religious artifacts, usually we do conservation treatment on other artifacts. Let's say leather artifact, paper, whatever. But before, as Tibet Museum, we have a good number of collections, especially religious artifacts. So we are very hesitant, sometimes, because this, as you have mentioned, is a big topic these days. And given the, treatments that they carry on in the Himalayan belt, specifically in Ladakh, especially Kinnaur, Nepal, and Bhutan, they usually do this deconsecration, asking the deity to allow us to carry forward with this treatment. So that was my concern.
You have the same question?
Yes, sir.
Basically, we were discussing the same thing, because since we are now moving on
What
to
other question you have?
the step of drafting a policy, conservation policy, we should take these things into consideration very seriously.
You give me a question.
Actually,
What do you want to go away from here? Yeah.
I don't have a question. In our storage, most of our collection is like a ritual object, so it's the same thing. How should we preserve? Actually, we consider all the object mainly as a religion, as a living god. So when we keep in a storage, it's kind of like keeping in a dead object. So how to?
I don't have any specific things, but I want to learn more about. Want to know more about the specific study on the conservation. I did like a degree course. For me, I learned about the Tibetan art history. So my background is Tibetan art history. And also I doing the Tibetan, I also making a Thanga painting also, right? So, and this subject is newly for me, right? So I also been to Lucknow University before, right, to learn about the conservation and all these things. So I'm thinking to study more about the conservation. So in India, we don't have any specific university. We have only some kind of diploma course and something like that. So I wish I can learn more about the conservation practice.
My second concern is regarding not only carrying forward the conservation treatment, whether it's allowed or not, but the second question is regarding the storage of the artifacts, especially when it is concerned with religious sentiment. So there are certain deities, there are certain Thanga, manuscripts which are supposed to either keep together, placed together in a single storage, or it should be placed separately.
Okay. So categorization for storage. Categorization for storage.
There are certain protectors, certain deities which, like certain deities gel together properly, but certain, which we should keep separately. So before not only conserving but also storage, when the storage, as far as storage is concerned, we should also take into consideration these things, like the traditional knowledge of whether whether this god and this god should be together, or which one should be placed above other, or like things like that should also be taken into consideration. I think that is also okay.
See that we have lots of donations, so there's no specific price for the objects. So how to put the value on the price of particular objects, like statue, Thanga. In case
somebody is donating an object.
Yeah, yes.
And then
we need to put the value on the
from
objects.
what the donor has given.
Yes. So this is the
Why
main
do you want
challenge.
to put the price?
In case if the object is lost from
Valuation of objects.
Yes.
Valuation. Valuation not in the terms of commercial valuation,
yes.
But when a donor is giving objects, when they put it in the inventory, you have an inventory?
Yes, we have.
You have a register of inventory?
Yes, we have.
And there you want to put the value?
But there's no specific value that they have not kept in record.
So you want to put the value?
We are getting orders from the some experts to put the value in case the object is lost. It's very important.
So what is happening is they collection, donors are giving objects to them, and certain experts are pushing their institution that please
not
put
basically pushing, it's a requesting or
requesting. Sorry. Yeah, requesting, not pushing. No, correct. Requesting or advising that they must put a value so that in case there is a problem tomorrow, in case there is a loss, or for insurance purposes, what will be the value of the object?
This is
a
big question.
But with important.
Really, as conservators, we value everything. And so we don't put monetary values on anything. And so the only way, if you need this for insurance purposes, and that's the only reason why we would have an outside insurance person come in and give the value. So we don't differentiate between something that's worth $1 million or something that's worth 5 cents. We treat everything exactly the same. So we're not in the position to give a value, monetary value, and nor even a value on any level. Everything is the same. Yeah.
But it's a question.
It's a good question, yeah. It's a good question.
An important one because, like what Teresa's saying, there's a level of equanimity with how we approach things, with our intention. But in addition to insurance, really it's like maybe what did this object sell at, or a similar object sell like at Christie's, and in terms of Interpol, if something is lost or stolen, hopefully not. If you don't have an image of it, then they won't touch it. So your information, like the donor, so even if it's recording the merit for gifting this to the monastery, but having that what we call provenance information, So where did it come from? Who made it? All the rest of this. This is, good to keep. But we were also talking that, some of this information, maybe it's that you keep secret. It's like transmission only. So don't share it too much.
Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
for the institution's use. It's never given outside, unless it's for insurance purposes. If there's damage or loss, it has to be kept secret and in a separate database, so nobody can hack it.
In addition to the question that she has put forward and answer that she has given, I want to make one more point.
Point in a question.
It's a question.
What is the question?
She has just talked about, she just said about equanimity, treating every object equally. But my question is regarding valuation. If we are supposed to give value to object, what are the factors on which
we are going to discuss that. That's a very important. You've actually put a very important question.
The material the object is made of, or how old it is, or
we'll do that.
The maker of the object.
Then there is the value of significance also. My grandfather's letter is more important than your most expensive object. For me.
Yeah. One question, sir.
Oh, yes. One clapping, please. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
My question is like who can be like a conservator,
Who can be a conservator?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
a person who does not have any training and any so he can be a conservator
Yeah.
I mean,
Very good. Yeah.
I just want to know how to preserve those natural pigment, especially on the Thaka paintings. Most of the paintings are disappear after a year by. That's why I want to know about how to preserve those natural pigment.
Okay.
And specific treatment used for the prevention of the objects getting mold,
fungus?
Yeah, fungus, and also the insect problems.
You question?
How to have long time preservation for documents, manuscript?
So we have a doll museum actually. It's been now quite 25 years old, and mostly the dolls are made of clay and rice paper. So some of the dolls are tilted. We don't have a museum curator or expert or conservation field. But now actually, I want to know about the guidelines, organization skills, about the kind of handling the dolls.
Can you bring some slides of your doll museum?
We have a very small museum in our institute. What we have displayed in our museum is costumes.
Okay.
And it was designed by one European guy. And it was designed in such a way that if one really wanted to, dust off, it's not open. There is a glass case. It was fixed in such a way that nobody can enter inside. So what we usually do is we use a ladder and send the kids in to clean. There are damages caused by termites, and in order to clean the molds, so we send the kids in. So I wanted to know how do we really set up the display through this.
My question is I want to learn how to keep especially thangas. We have a lot of thangas, 80 thangas in our institution, in our museum. Some 20, 30 we can display, but most of them we can't display every day. So how to keep it preserved nicely, especially we are keeping in a folding. And then second question is our museum. Yeah, our museum curator said that frequently we have to check out if it is keeping nice. Make sure that there's no insect inside. So how frequently we have to check out?
I really need to know that few techniques to preserve paper documents which are in different thickness levels. We are doing the digitization now, and then we have a problem with preservation techniques. I need a definite technique to carry on with my entire collections.
To do what?
To do the preservation. We have drawn, and then.
Okay, so the full works.
Yeah.
Remedial conservation.
When you say
treatment.
thick, do you mean like large.
Maybe he didn't say
sutras or
thick.
Like the
or-
thickness of the paper.
Okay, so the thickness of paper.
Thickness.
Yeah, okay, so when it's laminated together and it delaminates and stuff like that.
Till now, we don't do that. We just, do the dusting and clean it up, and then do the scanning,
Yeah.
and then digitize them, and then put it back to the registry.
Gold and silver, very old one. What can
How we can preserve,
How to preserve?
Yeah, how we do that.
How to preserve gold and silver writing on manuscripts. Okay.
So and the kind of answer I expect is that in Dharamsala actually we have a monsoon. It is a heavy monsoon. There's a lot of rainy season here. So because of the rainy season, the humidity in the air, it increases a lot. So the humidity itself consumes the manuscripts. So how we can prevent this type of consuming the
Humidity?
papers? Yeah.
Damage to objects by humidity. How to address it?
So I'm dealing with the manuscripts, and my problem, or say when I finish this, I will ask, especially to the institutions, administrators, to the problem is it's a space. We have the books every year. It's a growing, and that's why it's a very big problem for because our institution is very old, like more than 50 years, like. So we have a good collections, very large collections. Still,
It's
a growing, yeah.
So the problem is what?
Yeah, it's a space.
Space.
Yeah.
So how do you organize the collection?
So it's a hodgepodge collection. Yeah.
So how do you structure the? So how do you address the ever increasing collection? It's increasing every year.
Physically, it's a growing in numbers, but our approach is to digitize and more access to the young, to the readers in a digitized version. So nowadays, everybody used to know how to electronics. So yeah, but the older generations, they are more like to see the physical papers. But both the challenges we have, we have to, because digitize not in a month or it's a growing process, and in a very systematic way, the missing pages and everything, and the other way, the very important lamas or lineages, head of the institutions, they are always asked this library whether they have the kind of special manuscripts or something like that. These are we have challenges, and we are looking for mostly the space.
Which of
space
this?
problem.
So space problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the questions are done. Next question that I have is, what time is tea?
So basically,
One question.
no, not the question. What I expect to learn by the end of this workshop. So first one is same as in identification of the metals by its physical signs and that. And the second point is like basic conservation steps that we can do in our own offices in absence of complicated chemicals or procedures. So these two things basically. Yeah.
We are going to show you some 10-15 slides of a workshop that was conducted in Sikkim, where people from all the monasteries in Sikkim were brought together, and they came, right? And and it led to the development of a conservation center in that institution, right? So this is just to, because tea will come in 3:10, we'll just give you a small idea about also what we are expecting here. Already we have a lot of homework, right? But you will get an idea of how we're going to take things forward, okay? We're going to take 15 minutes and we're just going to go through some just some visuals of things that are happening around the country for conservation, to give you an idea of what the larger world is of conservation and how a program might progress like the one here. Okay? So that's our subcontinent, and the things that we are talking about today, we have collections in different parts of India, as well as Geshe-la talked about Afghanistan and these areas from where the Gandhara art developed. Then he talked about the Gupta period. He talked about the Kushans, right? Then we have our teams from Karnataka, we have Ladakh, we have collections here in this part of India, we have the eastern part of India, we have our Nepal, our Ladakh, our Himachal, we have our Arunachal, we have our Sikkim, we have these areas, right? And the objects that you showed in the museum today, from Mongolia all the way, when you talked about the relics, you have them here in Sri Lanka also, and you have Thailand and other places. Okay, so remember that story about crow and deer and animal, and they had a problem, and then they came together and they solved their problem, right? So the Panchatantra says this also. No, the mouse and turtle, deer and crow had first-rate sense and learning. Though money failed and means were few, they quickly put their purpose through. So it is really not everything about finances and other things which is important, but as Geshe-la also said, there is this thing about human endeavor. So it is about endeavor, about all of us coming together and working together. The Constitution of India also states it's your fundamental duty to preserve the rich heritage of your composite culture. Many of His Holiness writings also says about why we should preserve things. And Geshe-la also talked about, interestingly, about the conventional truths and this as a step towards ultimate reality and other things. So when we are talking about conservation of cultural heritage, we must remember that in the Eastern world, the intangible is also very important. Without that, there is no rasa in the physical. It will just become a physical object, which is also important. But I think to get both of them together, even in our approach to conservation, like you mentioned, that should we do a deconsecration, should we take permission, these are all intangibles. Somebody might say, what are you talking about? Just treat the object and let it go. But I think that is what makes us cultures and how human beings have developed over thousands of years. This, by the way, is in Tawang, the Chezokargin work that they do there. This is in Mukto. We'll see that later some other time. In Arunachal, that's your shugu, from which they make your paper. So before we're getting into the understanding of conservation, all of us also have to be aware of the materials with which these, whether it is the identification that you talked about, or how is the material made. Because unless you know the anatomy of the object, how do you treat the object or the body, right? So these are just ways in which things that we take for granted. And this is how, for example, the paper is made, and then Lama Lobsang Tempa takes the paper and then he takes it back and woodblock prints it, puts a bit of color, and then they make the lettering. Very few people are doing it anymore, the woodblock. Then put it together. So you have the wood block and you have the writing. Then you have the silk covers. Then you have, see, these are layers and layers of paper, but bound not by paste but by leather strips, and so neatly done that itself is an art. And then your writings of gold and silver and everything. Lama Yeshiko, and then your preventive conservation. The Gangyur Lakhang, the treatment of this, techniques on how to. Gelong Yeshiko, he made him cry because he kept wrapping it wrong. So wrapping, everything has a way of doing things. It is not you take cloth and you put it. There is a sequence, there is a ritual behind it, and that is the essence of learning our way of doing things. It is not only about doing things, I think it is also about the way of doing things, which we have to be mindful about. How to wrap it, the thick covers, the bound, even this, what do you call this? So when the manuscript opens, every time it faces you as if the light is shining on you. So little things like that. Then how do you store it, right? Please remember, the time-tested traditional systems of many of your practices are actually extremely sound. It may require a little tweak here, little tweak there, but I think with the understanding that we have here with Anne and Mike and Teresa, I think we'll be able to come to that also. So it is not about coming here and saying, oh, what you do is primitive and old-fashioned. No, it's not like that. Remember we talked about how strong their systems are already, and that it needs only a little bit of maybe a value addition, that is all. But this is from the Ani Gompa in Tawang. It's a beautiful monastery, very beautiful. Worked there for many years. And then, so you have Tawang all the way there, and you have in Ladakh, you have this here. Okay? So you have it right across the Himalayan belt. We have the same thread of culture going across. This is in Afghanistan, 2,000-year-old Buddha, crowned Buddha. In stucco, in Satsa you called it? No. That was clay. This is more like plaster, sitting like this for 2,000 years in a museum. And then it came out for treatment. Also this, also from Gandhar. With the bones that you were talking about, aprons, ivory, chunda, the treatment of the work. So just to giving an idea about how things are done, right? Putting things together. Also, while we are doing it, while we are doing our conservation and preserving, we must also take time to appreciate the beauty of the work. This green Tara, look at the way the knots are, look at the way the zari work is, look at the weaves that are there, see how the three of them at the same time and the fourth material here, how it is going, the threads. It is also, we must also take time to understand our works a little. And then various techniques of treating, which Teresa will show for emergency purposes. In these 8 days, we will go with a plan of how to approach it, and not as experts who will go and start treating everything. But we will have enough understanding to be able to talk to the expert. When a doctor comes and says, now do MRI, do this, do that, do this surgery, sometimes you say, okay, because the doctor has said, but sometimes you say, okay, but why should I do MRI? I think I can do simple, maybe CT scan or something. But maybe he has his reason, but you must at least be able to talk to the expert, no? So that much knowledge is also important. Then these are other techniques. So here this person is using a laser to clean the object, right? So what I mean to say is the world has moved a lot with technology and the sciences. But it is all what is correct and best for the object, not to follow technology just because it is there, but what is best for my collection just now. With all the COVID medicines, the highest of technologies, you say, no, drink warm water and tea, a lot of it, and do some steaming, that is the best. So you see, so that was a time-tested traditional wisdom. Follow that and you're okay. All right? So then you talked a lot about metal sculptures also. Then your manuscripts, your paintings, your terracotta, working with various types of materials. To do all this, you have to have a space. To do all this, you also have to have a space, which is a conservation center, which is a space. We are calling it a conservation, like in house, we call it a kitchen. So basically, it's another room which you convert into a kitchen, right? So, for the sake of documentation, sometimes an image is good, no? I will show you. You know what? This image is very good. 1 second. Where is that? The manuscript where the Tawang, this one is? Yeah. This one? Yeah? This is for the sake of. Please remember, documentation is, it's not a, it's an important tool to be able to further your work. We are having a session, and sometimes a good photograph is important, right? So for that, one can do a little bit of this to put the photograph, okay? Because recording of your work will be very important. As you said, even in terms of your collection, if you do not really document it and you don't have the image, even the authorities around the world will not pay attention to any incident of loss or theft in your collection. It's very nice. I really like this screen. So much fun. That was in Ladakh. This is in Bangalore. An empty hall is ready now. This was the CSMVS center in Mumbai. You know, you need a space and you need an intention. And you have to have some objects. Give me 10 objects. Give me the intention of the head of the institution and some people to work with, and you set up whatever you begin, set it up, and then it will grow. You know, it will grow slowly into bigger institutions. This was in between, then in between, and then it has become this now. This is the latest version of the center. So, and then different types of people you need. You need carpenters, you need experts, you need scientists, but they will come from projects. No institution can hire so many people and pay them month after month after month. You have to keep your recurring expenses low. That is the only way a conservation center in your institution will survive. Otherwise, the administration will never give you permission. Have your basic core staff, which is necessary for other functions also, and then choose your people wisely to do project-based work, and then it will grow. And one small project at a time, This is in Calcutta, one more setup in Calcutta. It's very easy to set it up in Rajasthan, in Nainital, little things, and then your tools and all come in. But the most important people in any conservation are the people. If they are there, then there's no problem. But otherwise, building, big equipment and all, it's not useful. And always build up your infrastructure project-wise, so that things are used. Otherwise, they will just fall into disuse. So now with what is happening around India now is that everybody is coming together to preserve art objects, historic objects, sacred objects. Everybody wants to be part of this effort. Everybody wants to earn some punya. Everybody wants to make their name Amar, So there are various reasons why people are supporting the work. And that, as we discussed yesterday, is also one of the biggest risks in your cultural heritage. Because money is available nowadays. And because money is available, tomorrow I send you a lot of money, the government says, here, take this money. You will go and treat everything. But if you don't treat it with the correct expertise and thought, you are meaning well, but you will destroy the collection. So many of our temples also nowadays, there are major money coming into conservation. And the people are doing it out of goodwill, faithful people. But things are completely changing. The physical aspect of all these historic structures is changing because there is no guidance in between. So important to go slow and do it correctly and then build up on it. Okay, this is the Sikkim, this is the workshop in Sikkim that happened in February, which might, some of it is reflected here. We'll do it differently or whichever way. So you also have to make a note. We need different types of objects that we discussed today. We need those samples. First is the examination of those objects. You also want to go back with some answers on how to do things. So we will do a visual examination of the objects and you will photograph them your way without any guidance from us, right? And after that, with some guidance, yeah, then you do it again, right? And you will get certain, and we will all help you, everybody will help. And these are the results by the same people after 2 hours of the session. Very basic. Nobody is becoming an expert in photo documentation, but little care, putting a little background, putting a little, all that makes, this is all being mindful about small things. Okay? After that, how to examine objects, different ways to examine objects. Okay? Damage mapping. Nowadays you have mobile cameras, take a photograph, take a printout and mark the damages in that instead of, but we also made them do line drawings. But what we found was that you are for some reason very good at observing and then putting it down. Observing, fantastic line drawings, right? Putting it all together. And then we will discuss what are these objects made of. How is paper made? How is this? Basic. Because how can we talk about conserving it or understanding how it is getting damaged if you don't know how they were made? Okay? And then we began with, if you have some pictures which you feel, even ones which are not very important, which are like copies, at least begin the process of your basic cleaning, basic removal of larvae, things like that. And then to repair, while we got you the jin shofu and other things, basically how to prepare a proper paste. Doesn't take too long. How to prepare proper paste and then use it and start doing some basic repairing. We've got different types of papers. So Mike is here. So we can do little work with guidance. So some of archival, because they had an archives also here. So they brought the archival documents, the others brought the manuscripts, and they all started shooting. So it's about just getting it together. And all practical work, morning to evening. Okay? And then, of course, everybody checks. There are 3-4 of us. So we will see how the work is going on and make you improve upon it. It needs a little bit of guidance to improve things, right? And then about a large collection. Then we have the visit to your collection. And that will not be just to see the collection, but because many of you have large collections. How do you go and in 30 minutes, how do you make a quick assessment of what is the condition of your collection. Okay? So we will do that as an exercise also. When we go to your collection, people will make their little notes on, and the forms that we have in English, we will translate them into Bhuti or something here. Okay? So this is their visit to the place, and they noted down their little things. They made their collection condition report, not individual condition report. Your general collection condition reports could be for tankas, could be for something. And after that, the questions that you have answered, right? You have many more days here. So you will have small demonstrations about various types of these things that we are talking about. Here it was about removal of fungus and making little solander boxes, or what to do about cracks on the objects, what to do about flaking paint, things like that. Okay? So they wanted to know about iron objects, like you mentioned, rusted. How do you preserve how do you fill up the losses? And then everybody works together with each other. The lights went off. And then you have your evaluation of your work, and then checking the quality of your work and putting things, storage. They very much wanted to know about storage of tankas, like that. And then during days also, every monastery that came during these days, we had half an hour every day for preparing their collections there. So while we are doing everything in common, towards the 4th, 5th day, you may also start making plans for the treatment of your collection. It will be different for everybody, but then you'll have to consult. Suppose you're talking about tankas, talk to Anne, talk to all of us, and then make your individual plans, but you'll have to also check them and then tell them you could do it like this, you could take it like that. So, right? And then the action plans, sometimes we found there was too much there, sometimes it is too less. So a little bit of discussion on that. And then we went to the, and we will need help from you, all of you also who are in the institution, because you know the collection better. And then we took up one space there that they had created, like you have your space here. And we went and printed the names of the different sections, and we set it up. And so this really was the beginning of their conservation unit. And the first step in it is to name the space. All of us here have available spaces. So it will be very important if you call it, give it a name. And eventually when you go back, tell the administration, whatever that room is, also call it a temporary conservation space. A temporary, think about your name, your own name. Yeah? But because then it is not just an anonymous little room. They know that there is a activity that is thought about there. Okay? And that is how it was established there. And that's how it is. That's how we hope we'll take things forward, because yesterday in our discussion we talked about we should go away from here with something real to give back, and not just do it as a workshop and go away like so many workshops. This should be followed up that way. So this is a little introduction to how things are. Okay? Thank you.
One of the things when we approach an object, we always make sure we have nothing dangling. Because the minute you go like this, it goes and hits the object. So we just really look at what we have on. We make sure we don't have watches or bracelets. For women, long earrings. And we just make sure that we... Sometimes. Yeah. Okay, tie it. Stick it in your shirt. So I think it's really important just be aware of yourself before you actually and think about what might get caught on the object. So robes, I'm very sorry to say, sometimes can also swing. So so you have to just think about how you're approaching the object and make sure that your personal space or your personal self is very protective of the object. And so then we always wear gloves. There's 2 different types of gloves. We prefer these kinds of gloves because as you can already see with these, they're dirty. And they haven't actually handled too many objects already. But it's very difficult to say don't use these because they're cheap. These are very expensive. And these are called nitrile gloves, and these are cotton gloves. We don't use gloves all the time, and Anne can talk about why we don't use gloves with paper. But one of the things that we always try and keep in mind, and should we show them when we enroll it? Oh, I thought okay. One of the things that we always do as conservators is we wash our hands all the time. Because the oils, can anybody tell me what the oils on your fingers can do?
Stain.
Sorry? They leave stains, and they do. Once the oil gets on paper, especially metal objects like this, you don't see it at first, but later you can have a perfect fingerprint because the oil oxidizes on the object, and so it turns brown. And so this is one of the things we really try and approach. And to talk about the paper, why we don't use gloves. A lot of people handle paper without gloves. Yes?
Sure. So the other thing is many people aren't accustomed to wearing gloves, and they're very sensitive to fingers, no? And the gloves, like for instance, this can be a hazard for me because this is a little bit baggy. And that is a risk. So with the gloves, you can lose your manual dexterity. So there's a sensitivity to the thickness of the paper. So you ensure that your hands have been washed. And then when you want to feel things, especially when you're trying to repair, your touch is so important. So we will obviously ensure our hands are completely washed. We didn't just have a biscuit. And sometimes I'm very watchful of even speaking like over an object, especially a sacred text. So yeah, it's more to do with sensitivity. Because what is worse? We're constantly risk managing in conservation. So what would be worse, a stain or a tear?
Stain.
Well, that's debated. It does kind of depend. So if I just wash my hands and then I touch the object, or if I have a glove on and I'm using it and it's very fragile paper, I'd much rather, have the risk of a minor stain with clean hands than I would running the risk of tearing the object. But there are no laws with this. These are guidelines, and you have to, it's dependent on the situation of the object. So how is this? You take every object case by case, because every object is similar but different. It has different ailments, so you have to use different antidotes, so to speak.
And another reason, not just because when the gloves are dirty, they transfer the dirt onto the object. And I don't use cotton gloves. You'll find a lot of textile conservators will say use cotton gloves. I don't use them because the cotton is very fuzzy. And it acts almost like Velcro, especially here where the silks are very, very common. Light silks on the veils of the thangkas. They're so lightweight that if I touch this with this, I'll take the veil with me. It just kind of picks it up, and then you can also cause damage. You don't realize that the textile is stuck to your glove or something happens. So I prefer these, but as Anne pointed out, these are a risk. They're so big for me. I will wash my hands and handle all the objects with my bare hands because I can't feel anything with these. And then another thing that happens, if you use the gloves that are too big, they roll up. So you get these kind of, and you can actually pull the objects again. You can use the gloves can be a hindrance, and you can actually touch a paper, and it just catches. They'll just catch on the little fold in the glove, and there's no way I can keep these. I mean, they really have to be very, very, very tight and form-fitting. So you want them like that, but on the other side.
So like a surgeon?
Like that. Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
Teresa, what about those gloves on a metal object, meaning the cotton?
Yes, and so I'm going to get to that. The metal, though, is very important. You can use this type of glove, or you can use this type of glove. But the one thing about cotton gloves is just make sure they're clean. So if you carried quite a few objects and you look down and it's dirty, then you change your gloves. And these are great for metal objects because then for certain organic objects, ceramics, things like that. Some ceramics though have, because it's low-fired ceramics here most of the time, you can pull the paint off. So I would actually prefer with low-fired or no-fired clay to always use this kind of and I think it's important to wear gloves with low-fired painted ceramics because they're usually a kaolin or what's a chalk-based pigment, and that absorbs oil instantly from your fingers. It really will suck all the oil out of your hand, basically. So it's really important, I think, to look at each object and think what is the best way, what is the best glove to use, or bare hands. So,
Is it also about what material is it made out of?
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
that determines, so this is why we're talking about identifying what is the metals, but what is the material? Because, for instance, Teresa's worked a lot on lacquered objects, and that's even worse than metals or photographs. Is that fair?
yes, yes.
But what do you also with these ones? What do you think if you've got something that has very fine filigree work with the cotton gloves? Are you ever worried about it catching?
Yes. So I mean, my preference always is nitrile gloves, but they are terribly expensive. So if you really can afford them and you need, but then again, you have to approach the object like I said. You have to approach it, look at the object first before you ever handle it, and see all the small things that you could damage. So there might be on the metal, there might be some really beautiful filigree. And if you use a cotton glove, and even these if they're too big, it can catch on the metal, and so you can damage it that way. So, but I do prefer these because they really protect the object, and in a lot of cases they also protect you. If there's anything on the object, and it probably doesn't happen here, but it may, and in a lot of the collections I've worked on in museums, in certain years, many times in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they used DDT to kill the insects. And I know you won't be doing that because, so I don't think it's an issue here, but if you end up working in a Western museum, you have to always ask yourself what this object's been treated with, because they did use very highly poisonous insecticides to eradicate all possibilities of insects. And I'm sorry to talk about killing things, but it is an issue. So, but not here, I'm sure.
Are the surgical gloves that we get from clinics
Yes.
same as the nitrile glove, or is there any difference?
There's a name for these. They're called nitrile gloves. It's very important to only use nitrile gloves because the other ones, vinyl, they have different properties, but they also can leave stuff on the. So like clinicians that are doing bed, working with sick people just at the bed, nurses and things like that, won't be using these that often. They may now because of all the COVID problems and things, but surgeons usually use these. So these are surgical gloves. And so you want to make sure that you get nitrile, and it's because the other ones don't work. And also, for yourselves, if you're moving a lot of collections and you have these on all the time, you need to take them off because you sweat, and also you can get some skin diseases like eczema. It really dries out your hands, and so you want to make sure you take them off. And we often reuse them, but it's not a good practice because what happens is bacteria builds up inside the glove. And so then you can get skin diseases. It can make your nails, it can do all sorts of things to your fingers. But I don't know many people that have that. And another reason to use these is that vinyl, many people are allergic to vinyl. So far, I have not met a single person who's allergic to these. Have you?
Never. And latex gloves.
Yeah, latex. Never use latex or vinyl gloves because they impart the plastics to your object, and they're also really bad for you. And they often put latex and vinyl. They used to put powder inside to put them, so you can get them on it easier, and that's also, you don't want to get that on your object. So I think that's it for just being, again, very aware of your surroundings, the people you're working with, and
I would say, because you said don't, look at the object first. Is the object in one part? Is the object made out of multiple parts? Do any of these multiple parts move? Are they still attached? All those sorts of things. Because you can get a surprise.
Yeah, right now I was just concentrating on looking at them. Yeah, but when we'll get into moving the objects, because this is really what she's saying is very important, because you can pick something up, and there are ways to pick things up that we'll go into, we'll demonstrate, and we'll have you do the same thing, because you can cause a lot of damage. A lot of the Buddhist sculptures that I know of are made in parts. And so if you just go for the head, you take the head off, or you take the top knot off, and if you think you're moving it, and you don't know that it's got those parts, and you move it, and then you kind of get knocks, it may fall off, and you don't want that to happen. So we'll do that. We'll talk more about that. So I think what we'd like you to do today, for the rest of the time, we don't have much time left, we want you to take photographs. Just, if you have, does everyone have a phone or a camera? Does everyone? If you don't, we can help you. But if you do, or if you're in the same group, if you came from the same place, you can share. But we just want to see how you look at the objects, and then tomorrow we'll talk about it. We want you to share all your photographs with us. So, is that clear? Okay. Okay. And if you have any questions, we're just going to mill around and be here. Okay.